Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Grande Bouffe.
The big feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. As we do every single week, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer each week. Good evening, Mike Lacy.
How's it going, Cole?
Very, very good, I must say.
Cole, this movie... I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it's the second movie you brought to me.
Yes.
That I have to watch.
Yeah.
With my eyes.
I know.
And my ears.
And your ears.
Which
and your whole, and your being.
And my
your soul. I knew you would say it.
And which requires me to, again, not gonna throw a spoiler out there immediately, but it requires me to watch someone doing something that, come on, man, like...
Okay, well, here's the thing. We said that we were going to go into 2018 with 4 French films.
Yeah.
And so Louis Malle's name has been percolating for a long time in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
This movie came to my attention. I read something about this film, and I knew that it had this element of which you speak.
Oh, God. So it literally was what made you want to pick this movie or watch it at some point.
It's a coming-of-age film.
Not denying my statement. Okay.
And yes, it's true. It's true that it does involve incest between a mother and a son.
There's a motherfucker in this movie.
And
it's
it's
the second time you've made me watch a film where someone has sex with their mother on this podcast, and they are underage.
I didn't make you, Mike. Come
well, you
on.
didn't tell me that what I was getting into.
Oh, I didn't. You didn't know that when you watched the movie?
I guessed it about a good 7 minutes in, though.
Did you really?
I was like, this dude's gonna fuck his mom.
No, you didn't really.
It was later, but it was more than 7. But I was just waiting for it. It was not a shock in the slightest when it happened to me. Well, I was basically like, dog, fuck your mom already. Like, we're sitting here, like, come on. See, I'm watching this in a Wendy's. Just get it over with. This
is interesting to me because I like that you went into the movie not knowing anything about it.
Nothing.
I'm guessing that you just watched this movie. You didn't know anything about it, and that came to you. What informed? Can you remember anything that might have informed you about that?
Let's talk a little bit about the beer.
Okay, let's talk about the beer. I do want to preface that Louis Malle's Murmur of the Heart is currently streaming on FilmStruck. Mm-hmm. We love FilmStruck.
Hey, FilmStruck.
I can't get enough of FilmStruck. I'm obsessed with FilmStruck. I just love looking at all the titles of great movies that I want to watch on FilmStruck all the time. And so this movie, for reasons that we that we will discover in our discussion, hopefully, I think has a lot of authenticity and truth to it. Truth.
I'm concerned that's your reaction, but it's not. It's raw. It's authentic. I get it.
So we are returning to this problematic subject matter. We are also returning to Flying Dog's The Truth, which is one of my favorite Imperial IPAs. I was recently on the West Coast where I did imbibe some very good West Coast IPAs. I just had one called Don John. I don't know which brewery that's from. I can't remember the brewery. I had that at, it's called Fluid State. Fluid State on Main Street in Ventura, just a couple of blocks from where the fires were. And The Truth is a nice, bitter Imperial IPA from Flying Dog Brewery.
I think, nothing against it. We don't do new. I think we've done it at least once before.
Yeah, we did it once before.
On maybe an Adam Curtis or documentary of someone else.
So.
Nice IPA. Nice little trip back to summer a little bit, hitting it.
Bitter,
but not an aftertaste that hits you. Mm-mm. It's a good introduction to an IPA for someone where you hit the kind of hoppy speed bump, but it's smooth after that.
And it's really hot. 8.7 ABV.
Ooh, boy.
Full disclosure, this beer, Mike, you can probably read this better than me.
Yeah.
This beer came to fruition because we saw... Yeah, you can read that better than me.
Okay, here we go. This beer came to fruition because we saw a gap in our portfolio and we wanted to increase our market share.
Voilà. C'est ici le menu.
We've had a guest.
Bon appétit.
We've had a guest from Flying Dog on.
Yes, we have.
And he was a riot. And
he was a riot.
And they hire people that kind of fill that bon vivance there, that willingness to say like fuck you a little bit, and they're not above their sort of scandals with their branding. But they, I think, fully embrace their attitude as the badasses of craft brewing.
Yeah, and they have Ralph Steadman doing their artwork. So what could be better than that?
Yeah,
famous for his work with Hunter S. Thompson. Which brings us to this great Louis Malle film, great coming of age movie, and a film that I have yet to read a review from any critic who I think understands this movie. I don't think anybody got this movie right. I read one by Michael Schrego. He did the Criterion essay. Criterion, just hire me to do an essay of a movie like this, and I will dust every surface in the room.
Hire me, okay? And if you want to have a lot of fucks and slurred speech and comparisons to episodes of The Simpsons, then I think I'm who you want. I got my finger on the pulse.
And Roger Ebert really didn't understand this movie.
Well,
he really didn't
no
get
offense,
this movie.
but it's not really an Ebertish. What year did
what
this
is
come
an
out?
Ebertish film now that you say that? I'm curious what you think that would be.
Maybe it's like Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the Philadelphia Story. That's what you're going for.
Oh, no, I meant Philadelphia, Tom Hanks.
Oh, is that? I thought it was called the Philadelphia Story.
No, that's the Katharine Hepburn film.
Oh.
No, the one where Tom Hanks gets AIDS.
It's just Philadelphia.
It's just Philadelphia.
Right.
The story of Philadelphia is not that everyone has AIDS.
And who doesn't want to watch Tom Hanks get AIDS, for crying out loud?
Rita Wilson?
All right, so let's get into this thing. So we've got this very
1953 France, Dijon, France.
Exactly, post-war France, and
post-war, but mid-war, it's early Vietnam War.
Good point.
Yeah,
that's true.
Plays a big part.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And Indochina plays a big part in the communal repartee at the dinner table.
Does Indochina include Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia? Is that what counts as Indochina?
Well, that's the French occupation in China
that crossed all three of those countries. I think.
Yeah,
I just watched Ken Burns' 18 hours.
Did you really?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Tell me, I didn't know. Everybody else has seen it, but me. I haven't paid my dues yet.
I mean, it's due for a rewatch now that I've just finished it.
It's got to be depressing.
It's not a re-education for me. I just have to say, as a 27-year-old who is not like.
You're talking about it's called Vietnam, right?
It's just called Vietnam, and a really funny thing is every episode starts with. So the show is called The Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And so every episode starts with a thanks to their sponsors. And it says, like, the Vietnam War was majorly supported by the MacArthur Douglas Grant, the Koch brothers. And so they mean the show, but it's just phrased so stupidly.
Oh, my God.
It's so
That's
funny.
insane.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Right. So, but it covers this section of the war, and this is long before... not that long, but it's a bit before America was involved at all, which really wasn't until just a bit before Kennedy. And so this is 53, and it was a war with the French, which the Vietnamese, at least I believe, essentially won before the Americans became involved. And I just bring this up because it's the backdrop to our main character growing up. He has two older brothers. He has a mother who is still very young and vivacious and seems to be having an affair. And their father is a gynecologist. And they are going to our main character at least is going to Catholic school. And there are people losing their lives in the Vietnam War. And it's a bit of this beginning part. I think you see more of it in an era where we have an abstract understanding that life is a bit cheap, that people are being sent abroad to die in a bullshit war. This 15-year-old kid is meditating on suicide, on death, on Camus, and
he's also actively exploiting whatever opportunity he can because he's out getting donations for charity,
and he's stealing jazz records,
so he's stealing that money, and he's stealing jazz records. He's really into jazz, and his two brothers. Is he the middle son?
I thought he was the youngest. He's by far the youngest.
He's the youngest. Okay, yeah. So that's the story, and so the brothers are really. It's as if he were a member of a fraternity. So they're really torturing him in any way that they can. They're going out of their way to come up with ways to torture their little brother.
I think a thing that you really need to note about the young men in this film, and be it related to their class and their status and the times and the sort of deference is given to them, is that they're real fucking pieces of shit.
That's right.
They're
assholes.
Fucks.
Yeah, they're gonna grow up to be Koch brothers.
They are sexually assaulting any staff member of their family that comes near them, anyone they can get away with. They are the rudest, most fucking awful.
They're treating the servants
dickheads.
like dirt. And they really mistreat the servants.
There's still this sort of this infinite motherly affection that comes at them. There's this care for their well-being.
Well, that to me has a lot to do with what this film is about, because there is this system of abuse and harassment in the family, and that's where and also put in this coming of age context of how this boy is developing.
Yeah.
Developing intellectually, developing emotionally, and developing sexually.
His brothers take him to a brothel, and they want to.
This is really for me. This is the centerpiece. This is what really kicks the movie.
They want to get him. They want to get him laid.
They're going to get him laid.
And this is a thing that I've seen in things before. I think it's the Kurtzer Sonata by Tolstoy. It's a similar story of someone losing their sex at a brothel. But I think in a lot of cultures, it's a fairly common thing. In fact, I think that up until a few decades ago, you would find a lot of people that were honest lost their virginity being taken to a sex worker. But it's not only that they are getting their brother laid too early, let's say, because he says he's 15 in the movie, but unlike most child actors, he looks younger than he's playing, even. And it's a bit of coitus interruptus. They use this as a chance to prank him.
It's terrible.
They use it as a chance to prank him, and they pull him away while he's.
And this is the thing about that I think. Human sexuality is so complicated to begin with, and everyone comes into it in strange ways. It seems that everybody's first experiences with sex are awkward and weird and disjointed. And so the point that I'm making is that somehow that frames your personal subjective experience.
You're speaking this from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It really makes a mark. It's an important part of growing up. It's a very important part of growing up, and how that happens, whether if it happens in a safe environment out of kindness and love, or if it happens in an environment that this poor kid suffers through, where it's really calculating and abusive. Of course he's going to have an axe to grind.
Well, it's not even necessarily his first sexual experience. There's very explicit reference to Catholic priest abuse towards him.
Well, yeah, there's a scene where the Catholic priest calls him in alone and runs his hand on his thigh. He pulls him out of gym,
and then someone makes a joke like, "Watch your butt."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just remember that this didn't become a thing in 1997 or whenever Spotlight takes place. This has been, since basically the birth of the church. This issue.
So Louis Malle is really telling the story in a very specific time and political setting and religious setting.
So this our main character, whose name I'm challenged to pronounce and remember, it's like his mother is Italian, and so there's a bit of a backstory here that these kids are kind of half Italian, and I think there's a bit of a opaque cultural clash happening here, opaque for an American audience, but she's an Italian who's tried to assimilate into French culture. Her kids, at least this boy, tell me when you have his name.
So Leah Massari is the actress, and she, cinephiles will know her as the actress in L'Avventura, which was made in 1960, long before this. Well, maybe not long before.
What year is this film?
Yeah, let's see what year this movie is. 1 second. She's a much younger wife to the gynecologist husband. All right, so here we are, 1971.
Wow.
And
so the Vietnam War is a huge part of this, and it's 3 years from being over at this point, 2 years from being over, or at least the Americans involved. The French had lost a long time before and had seen it as meaningless, and so it's absolutely a backstory here. Is that
so it's 11 years after L'Avventura, but she is still very young. She barely looks like she's aged a week, and so you can tell that she's a much younger wife to,
and she's Italian. We continue to learn that her relationship with the father is not very. It doesn't seem to be a deep connection. It's possible that he was a bit of a life raft for her, and she didn't have a deep connection and true lasting love with him, which is why she's having these affairs and has this.
I mean, I suppose there could even be a question of whether she's the biological mother. Is that possible?
I mean, the way that babies work, it's kind of tough. Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily know that she's his biological mother. Is that?
I agree that makes this movie more palatable, and I see the benefit of.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking about that in the movie. She's definitely the mother figure.
Yeah,
but
that's a generous rating.
But you could extrapolate that perhaps, he divorced a wife and married this woman.
I don't see it much. I don't see it in the movie. It's definitely explicit. I don't see it like hinted at, but anything's possible.
Yeah.
This kid, do you have his name? The character's name?
Yeah. So let me just dial that up.
He is supremely unlikable.
So Laurent Chevalier. He is supremely unlikable, and he's played by Benoit Frérot, and he's great. The actor is great. He's thoroughly convincing, and you're right. He's not a likable, not a likable
really
guy.
Odd, he's not very tall, but he has this awkwardness to his body that and he's using to his advantage. Well,
he's the one who drops the milk on the floor for the maid to clean up.
Yeah,
he purposefully does that. He breaks the bottle of milk on the floor for the maid to clean up.
It's like he's using his pubescent awkwardness as reason to torture everyone around him, and they'll just have to take it because he's a little rich kid. He'll get away with anything. There's no obedience.
Well, his behavior is being informed by his father and by his abusive brothers.
Yeah.
And so the one person he can relate to is his mom, because she's nice to him. She's kind.
And here's an interesting thing. The guy's he's very small. He's very slight. He's very thin. But everyone keeps reinforcing the idea that he's a man now. He's a man now. And everyone, and to a weird degree for the casting, everyone is saying you're so big. Like no one is referencing that he's like, probably like 4'2", and
he's bigger than
he's
that.
73 pounds.
No, he's bigger than that.
But the point is
he does have an adult air about him because he loves jazz.
He does. He's bizarre. Yeah, he's reading Camus. He's writing very interesting things.
Yeah,
not very interesting things, but it's ahead of.
Well,
he's
got this suicidal bent to him where he.
But what's weird? Often in films about teens,
he's obsessed with dark things.
Often in films about teens, those who have these suicidal thoughts have, they steal your heart a little bit. Your heart, you feel bad for them. This kid, I'm not gonna. I was thinking of saying something dramatic, like maybe this kid should do it. I don't think that, but you don't have more empathy for him having these thoughts. You're sort of just frustrated at him and really questioning where are the adults at all. And it quickly, to me, it felt like a commentary on these are the rich, educated, aristocratic milieu of this era, growing up in a time of deep nihilism and cynicism and like mores going awry. And this is how sexual liberation trickles down to people with more wealth and lack of boundaries, and is good for them. And it makes shitty people. And what happens when you transgress all of these thresholds and no one stops you? You get to fuck your mom. You get to fuck your dad's wife. This is the natural progression of no one stopping you.
Yeah, and you see this in movies such as Visconti's The Damned, which is another film that has incest in it.
And remind me the name of the one that we watched that had it, the Italian film.
La Luna. Bertolucci's
yeah.
La Luna.
Bertolucci's La Luna. Yeah, that's the one that I was alluding to, the other film that had this. And it seemed very different. Do you want to talk briefly about the different portrayals of mother-son incest between La Luna and this?
Well, yeah, I mean...
the similarities are actually... interesting.
Yeah, and there's certainly a similarity between this movie and Spanking the Monkey, which is another one that we could delve into if we were to go further upon this subject matter.
I guess
which we will probably only do one per year.
Because Spanking the Monkey is what's his name? American Hustle. He's huge. Yeah.
That was his. I think that was his first movie.
I believe it was. That's shit, what's his name?
Russell. You're there.
David O. Russell.
You got it.
David O. Russell, yeah. Mm-hmm. Long history of it. It is why is motherfucker a curse word? It's the ultimate transgression, at least in the English language.
Mm-hmm.
It's the furthest taboo. There's a reason motherfucker's a curse word, and Oedipus is one of the first great tragedies. It's
sure.
It's the boundary. Now I'm truly proving that I have a liberal arts degree. Caesar had a dream before he crossed the Rubicon that he fucked his mom. And he woke up and was not upset by it. And Freud's analysis is that he was so far gone, he was willing to invade his own country to declare himself dictator, that he had surpassed as a psychopath, basically, the threshold in your mind which suppresses your desire to commit mother incest, that he was having unrepressed dreams about that act, which is leave Freud where you want him, but it's what happens when someone is unchecked, and I think these movies are all getting at that.
Well, and let's dig into the plot, because what happens in Spanking the Monkey is that the mother has a broken leg, as I recall.
Yeah,
and so the son has to look after her. In this film, which is semi-autobiographical, and I want to talk I want to talk about how Louis Malle.
I wish I didn't know that.
But let me just say that the way that he came around to the climax of the film, if I may be so bold,
which is honestly, it is the first time he gets off in the presence of another. It is accurate.
But that was something that he imposed on the script. That did not happen in his real life.
Oh, good. Cool.
Yeah. So that was something.
I'm glad.
That was a dramatic.
Normally,
literary, whatever that's
people
called.
embellish autobiographies with them doing something cool and heroic, but no, that's cool too. Thanks, Louis, thanks for punching up your life and having you fuck your mother.
I just want to say that Susan Sarandon was became Louis Malle's girlfriend after doing Atlantic City, which is a great Louis Malle film that we should visit upon with Burt Lancaster at some point. Nonetheless. Our anti-hero, if you will, Laurent, is diagnosed with a heart murmur.
Hot mama.
And so his mom puts him up in this hotel, and so they
I've heard about these not a sanatorium, but it's out in the country.
Yeah,
and there
you can take the waters. And go to the spa.
These are like blessed waters.
It's really just an excuse for rich people to spend money.
It's just the richest fucking people fucking.
But for some reason, they have to. Mom and son are quarantined to the same room.
Oops.
And this is the danger.
Okay.
Of this storyline. Anyway,
when did I know he was gonna fuck his mom? Before this point, but that like.
Did you really? I'm shocked that you knew that.
I mean, first of all, my first tip off was that you suggested we watch this movie. My son, no, I'm just kidding. But
it's a Louis Malle film. We had to do four French movies. And also I didn't know it at the time that. I didn't put 3 and 4 together that, doing that my review of Lady Bird was going to crack Rotten Tomatoes perfect 100% tomato meter, all hallowed tomato meter.
Hey, quick question. In your review, did you specifically name check this movie?
Yes.
Oh my god, dude. So you're just sending... We should ask FilmStruck if they got a big spike of people watching it and be like, what? This is better than Lady Bird? Like, what? Like,
whoa. And that's the thing is, it really is because this film
I haven't seen Lady Bird.
I know. You have to see Lady Bird.
I should never see Lady Bird. That should be my strategy.
My only regret about my Lady Bird review was that I didn't put in Celine Sciamma's Girlhood because...
you name check the dude.
I name check the boy coming of age movies and not the girl movie. And of course, I would also probably could have name checked Catherine Breillat's A Real Young Girl, which was her first film. But that would be problematic because that film is very sexual, and that might pigeonhole me as something sexual.
You're pigeonholing yourself. Fine, don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, well it's only the work of a lifetime. 3,000 reviews and counting.
And I only count the 2 movies that you told me to watch with mother-son incest and be like, he's really got a type, this guy.
Exactly. Well, I think that also with us coming together to talk about movies every week, there's no sense in doing the shallow ones. I'd much rather go with the problematic ones. There's more to them. You need a little bit of grit to make an oyster. And this movie is beautifully filmed. The acting is superb. And the story is very complicated. And it has a lot of social elements, albeit French social elements, that make it a very watchable film on... I mean, we have it playing right now. I can watch this movie... again and again.
Yeah, it's obviously very specific. He lands it in a time in France, and this isn't probably not the first French film that we've done that came out in 1971. This is probably not the first French film that we did that is set in or was made in 1953. It is the first one that's made explicit reference to a huge thing, the Indochina War there. He's very purposely setting it in a time and a place. He's making very explicit
class distinctions between the servants and the upper class family,
the relationship of religion,
and how this patriarchy, if you will, is informing itself, because you have to understand that the father, as the gynecologist, it can't be an accident that the dad is a gynecologist, his persona is informing the way the brothers treat each other, treat the servants, and just act in general.
So
I want to talk about the painting, because the painting is really a big.
It's a really interesting metaphor. Yeah.
And so what the brothers do is they know this guy who does really great copies.
Yeah.
Paints really great copies, and they've got this family heirloom painting that they have the guy copy, and then they hang the copy. Everyone's convinced. They wait until there's a party where they can just make sure that everyone's really pleased with this painting. And then the older brother, the same one who performs the coitus interruptus on Laurent, sticks a knife through the thing in front of everyone to get a rise out of them. And I mean, there's such a malicious intent in that. There's such a destructive mechanism in the male mind. And, you can extrapolate that as far out as you want when you talk about people like the Koch brothers and Trump, because they have this really malicious intent.
Well, these kids are also better and worse than the Koch brothers. They're too educated for their own good. I think it's a FDR quote that if you educate a man in intellect but not in morals, you create a menace to society. Mm-hmm. So the thing that the son says, and also I don't disagree with this, is when he like cuts up the painting and he says this painting is worth the cost of the paint and the canvas. Mm-hmm. Everything else is the production of capitalist speculation. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yo, that's an intense statement from what, an 18-year-old, 17-year-old. That's both profound and vulgar and stupid
and evil.
And evil, and also the parents aren't, good, upstanding, moral people in like a higher way. They are definitely decent. They're kind. They're probably cruel to each other, but they fit in society. And these kids are petulant, but they're not hippies or whatever the 1953 equivalent would be. They're not beatniks. Mm-hmm. They aren't countercultural in any productive way. They're just no good monsters, and they're a product of their time.
So let's get into the relationship between the husband and the wife, because do you think that on some level the husband is grooming the wife? He's chosen this woman who's much younger, significantly younger than himself.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I'm going with the logic of the movie. What? Because you've got Mike, take another sip of that beer. You're gonna need it.
My face is just one of concern and confusion.
Well, yeah. So it's about how abuse informs and feeds on abuse.
I didn't get wait. The dad seems absent, but besides that, what's his deal? Like what's his evidence of abuse and shittiness? He kind of seems like
he's cheating on his wife.
I think Ken with who?
That's what Laurent discovers, that his dad is cheating, or no, he discovers that the mom is cheating on his dad.
Yeah.
Wow, I've had too much to drink now.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so
the dad, there seems to be some sort of sin of the dad, but besides just absent-mindedness, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem terribly abusive.
He's almost got a Peter Sellers look to him with those glasses, or a Humbert kind of look.
Yes, he does.
That's from Nabokov's Lolita, listeners, if you haven't read Lolita.
But it's from Kubrick's Lolita, right? As far as the Humbert look, you know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
that's a good point, Mike. You made a very salient point there. I'm glad that you were able to tweeze that out. That's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. But there is a distance between the husband and wife, definitely. What are we supposed to think about him being a gynecologist? Is the 1971 view of that's sort of shady? Is there an inherent dangerousness to him having this practice in his home with his boys, like that is a bit provincial and conservative to imagine that he has a medical practice that involves vaginas, like in the home, is somehow warping these boys. Is that kind of implicit?
I don't know. I think that, you know, the mom talks about having seen the Barefoot Contessa and having really enjoyed it, and
which is a cooking show. As far as I know, that was my reference.
I believe that the Barefoot Contessa was a film.
Yeah, it's also there's a lot of references
with Humphrey Bogart and Ava Gardner.
There's a lot of references to literary porn in this, basically, including the story of O. L'histoire de O. And as my Wikipedia tells me, it is essentially the progenitor of 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, don't diminish the story of O that way.
Okay.
It's much more than that.
Sure. Okay. But culturally, let's say it's the highbrow version of it. It's like a sexy novel that people read that was like very racy, and you wouldn't want your...
I would go a lot further than that. I would say that the story of O introduced bondage and sadomasochism into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So it made BD, but in
you understand. It's like it plays
in a literary way, not in a cheap way. You know, the 50 Shades of Grey is so cheap,
right? But like,
and the story of O was banned in countries, and there's a long
I don't mean
lineage of
I don't know that much about it. I don't want to say that it's like as shitty as 50 Shades of Grey, but in terms of it being a cultural phenomenon that involved S&M, it seems like a very obvious parallel. You know, and so I'm trying to understand what it means when he's reading this book, and it is like if you had a very young child reading 50 Shades of Grey, you'd be like, ooh, like don't be doing that. Like that's mommy's book. Get away from that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It was written in 1954,
right,
by Anne Desclos,
so
under the pen name Pauline Craig.
Yeah, so this movie again is really grounding itself in reality in specific times. It is making itself universal a bit, and then portraying things that you really don't want to be universal. And I mean, if people are watching this and acknowledging its
well, the husband, you know, there's a scene where the husband's calling himself the big bad wolf, and he's approaching his wife very sexually, and she says, you know, you're hurting me, and he says, you're no fun, and Laurent witnesses some of this, and you know, and then she goes to Laurent, she sees him, and she's displacing the erotic charge that she got from her husband onto her son.
Yeah, so at what point did I figure out he was going to fuck his mom? It would probably been about this point.
Well, that's a good half hour into the movie, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the writings on the wall that mom is aware of her son's budding sexuality.
Why? Like, you know, well, let's not judge Laurent being a 15-year-old who is both kind of being forced to be overly mature, and also it seems underdeveloped and wants some serious mother love in like a child context. He seems frozen a bit. It seems like he's being forced he's being forced to grow up too quickly, and is also not fully matured at the same time. What is the mom's reason? She's intoxicated, but she seems to become cognizant of...
It's Bastille Day. We're talking about the climax of the film.
The climax of the film. She's wasted. It's Bastille Day. She comes to and tells him, let's not be ashamed of this. Let's keep this our secret, and let's remember it as solemn and as a beautiful thing that happened between us.
Well, she's just broken up with her lover, so she's sexually charged, and the way the scene plays out, Laurent is certainly the instigator. Am I wrong about that?
No, he undresses his unconscious mother. Like, it's really fucked up.
But that's what I'm saying. He's the instigator.
Yeah.
So
I'm so uncomfortable.
But just do your Woody Allen accent. You'll feel better.
No, like double no on that one. No.
I just want to point out that, this is the kind of entertainment that you come to Le Grande Bouffe for.
This is what it's about.
And, there's humor, there's sex,
there's incest,
there's crazy provocative cinema.
Yeah.
And stuff that you just you wouldn't dare talk or think about otherwise.
Look, we're stuffing ourselves, and I tell you what, it's not with like KFC.
No.
It's not with the Avengers every week. It's with
it's provocative stuff that cinema all great cinema is made of, and so if you
it's Malle confit is what we're stuffing ourselves with. It's heavy, it's thick, it's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
It might give you intestinal issues.
Hopefully not psychological ones. So go to colesmithy.com and hit any chapter heading other than the home page, and you'll see down on the right where you can find my Patreon page, and you can go there and you can help support us with $5, $10, $20, $100 a month, $250, whatever you can afford, because we love bringing Le Grande Bouffe, the Big Feast, to you each week. And who knows, maybe we'll do another coming of age movie soon. We certainly have a couple more French films that we have not yet divined yet. If anyone has inspiration for a French film that you would like for us to discuss, drop me an email. Maybe we'll do it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do all coming of age. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do people dying. Maybe we'll do love. Remember love? People dying. We haven't decided, but let's get some feedback.
But we want to do 2 more French films
before the end of January.
Yeah, the next 2 movies that we're going to do are going to be French movies. So if you get in touch with us right away, you know what? The dating on this is not going to work.
Well, we're gonna do.
We will have already done that.
We're gonna do a very contemporary film, I think, also in this.
But if you want us to do a French movie, if there's a specific French film that you'd like for us to dissect as we do over craft beer, please send it to us. Murmur the Heart's going to be a very divisive film. I bet it has no way it has a perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that is as it should be.
Cole, would you recommend?
I would recommend this film.
To everyone? To everyone in the world, you would recommend this film? Is that a problematic criteria?
It's a little problematic because I don't really think that anyone under 14 should see this movie.
So if I were to ask you on a just blank basis to recommend or not recommend a film, you wouldn't know what to say about this movie?
No, because I don't think children 6-year-olds shouldn't see this movie.
Okay, but generally for movies, you have an up or down answer if I ask you to recommend or not recommend.
I grade my movies using multiple systems. I use 5 stars, no halves. I think I would give this movie a 4 stars. I think I'd probably give this movie an A-.
So what I'm reading is that just giving a blank recommend or not recommend. It's kind of a complicated concept.
It's a little complicated.
No reason. I'm just wondering. I have no reason.
That's why you have to read. That's why you have to read the review and then figure it out yourself, or just watch the movie and decide whether you like it or not. I don't know.
I will.
I think people should watch every movie. I don't think that they should.
I will say if you.
I would hate it actually if I gave some movie an F. Like, what did I give an F? I gave Logan an F. I hated that.
Fuck you, dude. I love Logan.
Fucking movie. What a dog. What a piece of shite.
Fun.
Utter shite. I want to give a shout out to my friends, The Stripes, by the way. If you are, any of you are interested in the only great rock and roll band encircling the planet these days, it's a bunch of guys from County Cavan, Ireland. It's a very small rural town. They're called The Stripes.
The Stripes.
Strypes. Now, that's a British accent.
Yeah, it was a British accent.
Not Irish.
The Stripes.
Those kids are great.
Stripes.
Love The Stripes.
I think I got it there, The Stripes.
Get them closer.
That's closer.
Yeah.
The Stripes.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Destroy.
And remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie.